This is Joyce Hanson. Today is February 28th, 2008, and I'm interviewing Jack Smith for the Murrieta Oral History Project.
All right, let's start out. When did you first come to Murrieta? When did you first live there?
I was trying to think of when they incorporated. They incorporated in, what was it, early in December. But I really can't remember the year.
Oh, 1991.
Oh, 91. Okay. In December '91, I came to work in the spring of '92.
Okay, and you were the first city manager.
Yeah, I was the first employee. I had to hire everybody else. And in fact, if they didn't have any money, I loaned them $25,000. And I got paid back in July or August when the revenue started coming in from the state.
That was quite generous of you.
Well, it's not much of another alternative, you know.
Okay. What made you decide to take the job as the first city manager?
Well, I had been the first city manager in Cathedral City.
Okay.
And had started up that city. I had been the first county manager in Arizona when I was in Coconino County in Flagstaff. So I had some experience about starting things up from scratch. And I thought that experience, plus I think the experience they really liked, the city council did, was the fact that I'd started up a police department before. And that's since there was a former policeman and a highway patrolman on the city council, and that was their main thrust, was to get a police department going.
I see.
But the real main reason for incorporation was they didn't want to be part of Temecula. They didn't want to be a city themselves. They didn't really want to incorporate. But they incorporated to keep out of the clutches of Temecula.
Okay, so they didn't want to become a...
No, and after they incorporated, they still didn't want to be a city.
Oh.
They had their fire department, which made them separate, you know, and they used to have a lot of pride in the fire department. And then they had a community service agency, a CSA they called it, that provided recreational facilities.
Okay. All right. So most people, would you say that most people didn't want to incorporate?
I think they loved the rural lifestyle, and they had an aversion to most influential people did not want to be incorporated. So what happened is every time we want to do anything that cities do, they were opposed to it.
Can you give me some examples of that?
Well, street assessment districts, traffic signals. About any urbanization that would take place, they were against it. A lot of the large landowners were just holding out to sell their land to developers and get out.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the people who actually supported this decision, who would they be?
Oh, I don't recall the names anymore. It's been so long. The city, the community was kind of run around the fire department.
Okay.
And they were so financially in debt they couldn't do anything. When we incorporated, I had to lay off people. And of course that set pretty hard with a lot of people. They didn't like that, you know.
I imagine not.
And so laying off the people and cutting back, you know, they built these fire stations and hired all these people and didn't have the revenue to support it. We had to let some of the equipment go back to the manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
And so that upset everybody. Of course, the city took the blame, not the poor planning on the part of the fire department.
Okay. Do you know who was in charge of doing that before?
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the chief at that time.
Oh, okay.
He lived there. Just a minute. Just a second, please.
Okay.
What? Karen, yeah.
Oh, okay. Marvin Karen?
Marvin Karen, yeah.
Okay, so he did that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. He was a longtime resident. I think his mother lived there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he drove a bus before he was a police chief, fire chief.
Oh, okay.
He was a long-time resident. His mother was a teacher there, I believe.
Yeah, she was. So, tell me about how you go about starting a city. What's the first thing you have to do?
Different. This city was different than what you would think most cities would be, and the fact that they set up little committees on every subject and had public input. They had a committee on finance, a committee on police protection, a committee on recreation, on every subject, and they wrote a plan for the city. And it's kind of like taking a bunch of people off the street and having them write the plan on how you take out an appendix.
Oh, gee.
Most of them didn't know what they were doing, so it's kind of like the generals say, when the first fire shot, all the battle plans get thrown aside.
Right.
It's the same thing here. None of the plans really fit.
Ah, okay.
And so that, of course, all those committee members have pride of authorship in their work, which they spend a long time preparing, maybe up to a year, and then none of it is applicable, actually. And the reality of the relations with the county, the relations with the other city, the internal disagreements among council members, the reality is far different than a paper plan that is prepared by a lot of well-meaning people that work very hard on it. I don't know, let me think, what else? Well, so how you go about it is, the council told me what they wanted. They wanted a police department, that's what they wanted. I suggested we maintain the contract with the county because it's cheaper, and you don't have to put up with labor problems. You don't have the pregnant wives sitting in the front row with signs talking about their salaries with their husbands, And so, but no, they want their own police department. I said, okay. And they told me, well, you did it before. And I said, yeah, when I did it before, I had 5 years revenue in the bank, and I was assured that we had a solid foundation, and we paid the highest salaries in the state of California when we were recruited in Cathedral City. So we hired the cream of the crop. Hardly anybody without a bachelor's degree. Over half of them had master's degrees. So when I did the same thing in Murrieta, we did it on a really, really tight budget. So you're not recruiting the same experienced, qualified officers that you can when you're paying the highest in the state.
Right.
But we did it. And I think the people are happy to have their own police department.
I'm sure. Other people have said that the cost for the sheriff's department was a drain, and that they couldn't get the response time that they needed and things like that. Do you think that was a major factor? Those were major factors?
Well, I think the major factor was they had their own fire department, and they wanted their own police department to give them a personality or give them a different look than Temecula has. There was a lot of people that would not shop in Temecula when the city incorporated. They wouldn't even hardly say the word.
Okay.
I mean, it was really bitter. I mean, all that went on before I got there. I don't care. I didn't mean to talk about it or even hear it because I thought it was kind of stupid. But that fueled the fire.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So actually they incorporated for a negative reason rather than wanting to be a city and guide their own future. They wanted to not allow Temecula to guide their future is why they incorporated.
Oh, I see. Okay. So after you did the police department, and they had the fire department.
Fire department, yeah, we had to cut way back on the fire department, and then there had to be a decision reached whether or not we'd let the California Department of Forestry, CDF, whether or not we would let them take over our fire department. And the council and most of the residents felt no, we would struggle along with a reduced fire department and keep our own. And so we would have our own police and fire department.
So they were basically being very fiercely independent of those two organizations.
Very much so. Very much so. A lot of pride in the community.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pride. A lot of, and I got to give that first council a lot of credit for planning the infrastructure for the city. They said repeatedly that they wanted to build the roads before they brought in the commercial development.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, right there where the two freeways come together, there was approved plans for a shopping mall.
Mm-hmm.
It was too small of a site to begin with, and they were talking about parking structures and everything else, and I don't think anybody that knows anything about commercial development kind of looked at that and wondered. And it did go away eventually.
Mm.
But that guided the city's initial growth with the widening of the road there and other things.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of the street that parallels the freeway, where all the development is. Home Depot and all that.
Oh, I can't think of it. I can't think of it either.
That street was put in by the water district, and they widened it, did an assessment district, and put in the water and sewer lines. And that wasn't the city's doing, but that was really the golden fleece, because that brought in a lot of money to the city.
Mm.
Sales tax.
Okay. So once that happened and the businesses started coming in that area, then...
Yes, they did. They always bemoaned the fact that the restaurants were all in Temecula.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted restaurants in town, and there didn't appear to be any.
Mm-hmm.
Not very many. And they always figured they would get them eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But when Temecula got the mall, and they got... originally when Temecula incorporated, they had traffic people standing at the freeway during rush hour to regulate the traffic. Because it was so jammed up. The business was all on the west side, the people lived on the east side.
Uh-huh.
It's changed now, but with overpasses and a few other things.
Right. So once that money started coming in, did things ease up in the city? Was it easier to hire more quality people, or what exactly happened?
They were very conservative by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Very conservative.
Okay.
They seem to think that some of the fascism that was going on in Fallbrook and the school districts was not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's how far to the right they were in my book. They had strong feelings about minorities.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was but the times, they eased up into the effect that I could hire enough people to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And I hired some pretty good people. Mm-hmm. And I think the council sprang for the salaries so that it enabled me to hire good people. Mm-hmm. The answer to your question is yes. They did recognize the need for skilled people.
Okay. So you had a good relationship with that first city council?
Oh, yes. Yes, we did.
Okay. How long did you stay as city manager?
About 5 years.
Okay.
4.5 years.
Were there subsequent city councils where the relationship wasn't as...
Oh, yeah. When Jack Van Hoster came on,
mm-hmm.
Things got less harmonious.
Okay.
He was on the council for quite a while.
Yeah, he was the longest serving council member, actually. So you worked with Jerry Allen then as the first one?
Yes, Jerry Allen. Okay. Jerry Allen was a joy to work with because he would crunch the numbers very well. Mm-hmm. for that fire district.
Mm-hmm.
And when he became chief, things were pretty good.
Oh, okay. And what about David Haas? How was he on the council?
David Haas was a little flamboyant, a little rough around the edges,
Mm-hmm.
but a very well-meaning, and there was more to him than it appeared. He was very much a financial conservative, and he would attempt in every way he could to save the city money.
Mm-hmm.
He got along well with the other council members. I think maybe he ruffled some feathers in the community.
Mm-hmm.
But got along well with the staff, got along well with the other council members.
Okay. Now he was a developer, right?
He had been a developer in Orange County, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think he did any development in, well, I think he had a couple lots he was working on up in Paris or something, but I mean, he didn't do anything in the city.
Yeah, no, but he was coming at it more from a developer's point of view.
A lot of times, yeah, I think you're right. But it wasn't always that bad, I mean, because councils and city employees and city managers sometimes take a pretty narrow view of things, and it's kind of good to get the other people's ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was interested in the composition of that first council, what people's backgrounds were, because it seems to me that the few people I have talked to, they have a diversity of occupations and backgrounds.
Yeah, they did. Well, a cop and a fireman. The fireman had been a cop.
Uh-huh.
Came from a police family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his dad was retired LA County.
Mm-hmm.
So that was two of them, and then Haas, and then Vic. I'm trying to think of who else was on the council. The engineering guy.
Fred? Is it Fred?
Fred.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred. I'm going to talk to Fred next week. So.
Fred worked for an engineering company that was housed in Temecula and did work for a lot of engineering companies.
Mm-hmm.
He sometimes got into little conflicts with the council members on projects that his company was representing, and maybe the company's attitude towards it wasn't the same as what the city's attitude on a project would be.
Mm-hmm.
So he sometimes had a little bit of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
He was another very conservative man.
Okay.
But conservative in more of a negative sense than a positive sense. I mean, he didn't want to pay any salaries or give any fringe benefits.
Oh, wonderful.
So it made it difficult to recruit, but he was in the minority.
Okay.
In the minority by far.
Okay.
The rest of them knew that you just have to give the state retirement. You have to give health insurance.
Right.
Vacations. Those are just givens.
Right. Your basics.
Yeah, right.
Oh. So, as far as development affecting the city itself, what can you tell me about that? Do you think development was too fast, too slow? Were there issues that should have been addressed before development happened? What is your take on that?
Well, I have to think that the die was already set.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of lots had been approved in the county before we incorporated.
Okay.
So there was nothing we could do. They just came in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I'll never forget my first day. I was sitting in an office, and up there with the McDonald's
Yes.
gas station is in Los Alamos, they're putting in a traffic signal. I said, how can they be putting in a traffic signal? I didn't know anything about it. That was all approved by the county. And things like that went on all the time. Widening of streets and all kinds of activity going on that had been approved by the county. And so we just inherited it. Didn't have any choice in that. I think that the development within the city was done as serious about it, and we tried, but it was so much of it was already approved that not much we could do. But there's always that cry, we're growing too fast, too soon, without enough planning, we don't have the infrastructure. That's always true.
Yeah.
But then by the same token, people say, we like the rural atmosphere here, we love it. And then they'd say, but I want a Starbucks. Where can I get a Starbucks? Coffee. I want it just like Orange County where I came from. And those original days, it was kind of strange. In the wintertime when it was dark, you'd drive down the streets and you'd see the garage doors open up with the lights on, and the garage doors closed, and the people all go into Orange County to go to work. It was like a ghost town during the day. But it's, there's always that conflict that goes on. You know, we want movie theaters, but we don't want kids hanging around, you know, those kind of things.
Yeah. We want a McDonald's, but we don't want the kids.
Yeah, right. I used to say there's two problems city managers can't solve. One of them is barking dogs, and one of them is snow removal. Snow removal doesn't apply out here, but it did when I lived in Flagstaff.
I'll bet.
You can't solve it. You push it to the curb, the people gripe because their driveways are closed, and if you push it to the center, they back out and bang in their cars into it, so there's no winning. And barking dogs, the solution is not with the dogs.
Well, I'm from Connecticut, so I can identify with those snowbanks in the driveway. But you're right. No one's happy with that.
So, same thing with urbanization. You can't win. And then there's always going to be groups within your community that are pro-growth. Maybe they call themselves environmentalists, and they're the anti-growth, or whatever, the Greens or whatever. There's always that element, and they go in and out of councils. And so, for city managers, somebody told me once, you look at the census population, and if it hasn't changed, that's good. And the other trick is you look on the drugstore, and if the hair bluing aisle is bigger than the one with the prophylactics on it, that's a good place to work. So I don't know if there's any wisdom in either of those comments, but there's something to be said for it.
Yeah, that is funny. I never heard that before. But Murrieta grew a lot.
Oh, it just exploded.
It did.
Yes, it did. I mean, it grew so fast.
I mean, we're talking from, let's see, it had 24,000 residents in 91, and then by 05 it had 85,000 more moved in.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's well around 100,000 or so. And that's...
Oh, yeah, the other problem, well, not the other problem, all of the problems they had were related to growth. Of course, schools was a very important part of this, and there was a lot of unhappiness that the school district or the county, I'm not sure, I think it was the county, that built the schools in Temecula, but the residents of Murrieta came in after the purse was empty, I guess, and they had to build their own through bond issues and stuff. And so that always kind of set kind of hard with them.
Yeah.
But the schools were always very important to the people that were living there.
And for a while, the high school, they went to high school in Lake Elsinore, right? I believe.
Well, when I was there, they had a high school.
Oh, okay. That was before you came then. Yeah, because...
it was brand new.
Okay, yeah. Cause
yeah, you're right. They had been going up at Elsinore. And this, now they got a second one, haven't they?
I believe they do, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things have grown exponentially down there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, it has really grown. It's I guess property values are still good there, I don't know.
Well, they're more reasonable than Orange County. Or LA County, but you're right about the people who live there are still largely commuting out every day.
Well, what they used to say, and I don't know if it's true, I don't know if it's true then or true now, but they used to say people living in Temecula worked in San Diego, and the people that lived in Murrieta worked in Orange County.
Pretty much. That's pretty much the divide, yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting to go down there and look around. Was there I've heard there was a split between the old town and the new city.
Yeah, there was.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that? Do you know anything?
Yeah, when we have a community service district allocates their fees on a per parcel basis.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it any way that you want, any way that's politically palatable. For instance, if you have street lights in one side of town and you don't have them on the other side, you could charge the people with street lights an extra $20 a year for the energy for their street lights and not charge the people on the other side.
Okay.
And same thing with the parks or just about anything you might have. You could, libraries, anything. The most common ways that cities do it is if you got 20,000 parcels of land, you just charge a uniform parcel. Maybe you charge commercial properties a different fee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was proposed, and the people on the west side said, no, we don't have any of the amenities. You can't charge us the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hired a company that does that, spreads the assessments. I call them assessments. They're really not assessments. They're just costs
Right.
That are generated by the city. They spread them the best they could. And it didn't seem like there was ever a formula that was fair to everyone or equal to all the people involved. So there was a flack on that all of the time.
Mm.
Yes. I can remember in Cathedral City, when I was working there, we had the same problem. We had $12 a year assessments for those people that had street lights, and that was the south end of town.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make all of the assessments the same, all through the city, so I wanted to make them $10 instead of $12. And then several hundred people came to City Hall and said, you made a promise you wouldn't change them. He said, well, we're lowering them $2. We don't care. You said you wouldn't change them. So sometimes reason or logic is hard to fathom in some of these emotional issues.
Right.
I did get pretty emotional. People were upset about it. And I don't know how it was ever resolved. We finally just had to impose something. We did away with the CSA, and that was hard feelings. The elderly gal that ran it, who has now passed away, ran it like a little dictatorship, and she catered to certain people in town. And when I started making inroads in there, she caused a lot of problems. So yeah, that caused hard feelings.
Were there any other things that kind of stand out in your mind as not only hard feelings, but good things that happened or positive things that came out of all of this?
I think in the long run, these hard times up front, most of those old timers aren't around anymore. And I think now the community is more harmonious and feels better about themselves and maybe has a little more pride of cityhood, pride of being a city. And I think some of that comes from sports teams at the high schools. It comes from events that the cities can have at their city Easter egg hunts or whatever they do. Those types of things that tie people together. I think now people live there have a little different feeling. Before, when you said you were from Murrieta, the response was always, Murrieta Hot Springs? That's what everybody said. That's all anybody knew.
Right.
And I guess there was some discussions, and had been a couple failed elections in the past. I guess they had been, and all of that's behind them. I don't know if the bitterness about Temecula still exists or not. Temecula got some pretty preferential treatment when they incorporated.
Right.
Through their redevelopment agencies and through the city manager there, who had been the county manager of Riverside at one time. So they did, and that kind of hurt people's feelings a lot, and more than their feelings, I think it hurt their pocketbooks. I think all of that is gone now and is forgotten.
Okay.
And I think the city should just look forward to a prosperous future and a future in which they're going to continue to grow. Jack Van Hoster, more than anybody else, was concerned about putting a cap on it or limiting the growth. And I don't think anybody else ever thought that that would be possible because there's been so many court cases that if you don't have enough water, that's one thing.
Right.
Short of that, how do you stop development?
Right.
I don't think you can. I think the only thing you can do is just try to control it and encourage it and develop in the best way, control it the best way you can.
Right. Yeah. If you have controlled growth, it's.
Well, yeah, that's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
You try. You try your best, and you don't do a perfect job. But think what it would be if you didn't. And so, what would we have? Congestion. Congestion, poor, no street lights, slums, mismatch. Everything that we have, that was what we'd have if we didn't have plenty growth.
Right.
But you just try. That's all you can do.
Right.
And I don't know. I think there's people that live there. I think the schools are doing well. I think they have a nice park system. I believe in the long run, Murrieta will be a good place in which to live and raise your family. The only thing missing is jobs. And I've had some big, long discussions about that. About we don't want to just provide the houses for all the companies elsewhere. We tried economic development to bring communities, places to our area. We had one big company that did payroll checks. Did tens of thousands of payroll checks. And they weren't thinking about Murrieta because they could come out there because there was cheap labor. Exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah.
But without a university or a major airport, you're not going to get the high-tech stuff.
Right.
So,
well.
yeah, it just kind of like Topsy, Just grows. Yeah. How long have you been there?
I don't live in Murrieta. I live in San Bernardino.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I talked to Al, and Al contacted me at the university because I was doing a project here in San Bernardino, the same type of project. So
I hired Al from the city of Carson.
Oh, really?
I didn't mention that, but I hired most of the core employees from Carson. I was manager in Carson. I brought my assistant in from Carson. I brought Al in from Carson. I brought the city engineer in from Carson.
Okay.
So that's how come they got an experienced group of people so readily.
Yep. Networking. It's all networking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In this business, absolutely. The consultants that did the incorporation study were good friends of mine. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I think you're right. I think Murrieta it's a really nice place. It's a nice city, and if you can get some economic development down there, I think it would do a lot better. But you know what? Most cities are what they are these days.
Oh, yeah. I majored in urban geography for my bachelor's degree, and yeah, you're right. There's a reason for every city, and otherwise it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and it's hard right now, I think, to attract business, since a lot of our business is more global, and there's a lot going overseas. I think it's hard for our cities to compete with getting these businesses in.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Are you familiar with the desert at all? You know where Desert Hot Springs is?
Yes.
Yes.
Desert Hot Springs sits on the other side of the freeway all by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't get anything. You know, I mean, I was manager there for about a year and a half on an interim basis after they had some troubles.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to tell them, they said, you know, I've lived for a long time, 26 years in the desert, and I never go to Desert Hot Springs, never, ever. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
And people live there, they don't understand that. They don't understand that. You know, and every city has an image and a reputation, and it's kind of self-fulfilling.
Right. Right.
San Bernardino's been through some hard times downtown, huh?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Still. It's not getting better right now.
No.
We have a lot of new warehouses, but that's about it.
Yeah, they come in and then mom and pops all suffer.
Exactly. And that's the other problem. You don't want a Walmart, you don't want a Home Depot, you don't want a Lowe's.
I want to shop there, but I don't want one in my town.
Exactly.
I want the lumberyard where I can pay 50% more, yeah.
Yeah. People are contradictory.
Well, they are, very much so.
Well, is there anything else you want to add that I haven't asked you or haven't?
Not really, I kind of skipped all over, but enjoyed it. Kind of made me think back about some times a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the project.
Okay, thanks. Bye.